And when I was in high school, I had a good poetry teacher. I had a good short story teacher, but that was in high school. And when I got out, the secret was writing every day of my life. And in a year of doing 52 short stories, you can't write 52 bad ones, can you? You've got to write something good if you do 52 stories. And a lot of those stories began to appear. But I was in love with bookstores all over LA. And I came down to Long Beach and went to Acres of Books when I was in my teens, and Acres of Books became a center for me because I went in there looking for me. And I've got a basic rule. Do what you love and love what you do. Jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. If you are trying to decide what to do with your life, you do it. Jump off the cliff, and on the way down, you'll build your wings. It's very important. Now, if you have friends, when you get home tonight, when you have people who don't believe in you, give them a call and say, Bradbury is advising me. And go to hell. I was very lucky. I went in a bookstore downtown LA at Pershing Square, and I bumped into a young lady there who waited on me. I was looking for a certain book. I had my first short story published in that anthology, and I came in a couple of days later, and she came up to me and she said, I've read your short story. You're quite a good writer, aren't you? I said, I don't know, maybe. But it was nice that she said that to me, and I took her out for coffee, I took her out to lunch, and took her out to dinner one night finally, in May 1946 it was. And when we finished dinner that night, we went home, and in front of her house, she grabbed my elbows and gave me a big smooch. It was the first kiss of my life. I never had any contact with girls. I didn't know how to handle that. That's another reason I didn't go to college, because the reason for being in college was girls. That's not good enough. So when I left that date with my girl giving me a smooch, I staggered off and got on the wrong streetcar. I wound up way down in Laguna on the streetcar, and I looked at it, I said, where are we at? And the streetcar conductor said, Laguna, where do you want to be? I said, Venice. He said, that's 20 miles back the other way. So he said, what happened? I said, my girl kissed me. He said, those things happen. So he said, look, I'll give you a transfer. I'll take you back. You go through the streetcar with me and reverse all the street, all the seats. And I went through the streetcar, reversed the seats, and went back in the other direction. And got my transfer and wound up in Venice. Very late indeed, but thank God for that kiss. Huh? And along the way, I was very lucky that I fell in love with all the things. What you see here before you is the world's greatest lover. I fell in love with movies. I fell in love with radio. I fell in love with short stories. I fell in love with the theater. And all these things I took part in, and I didn't care what any of my friends thought about that, but I did it anyway. So when I was 19 years old, I saw in the newspaper that Lorraine Day, who was an actress at MGM, had a dramatic group at the Mormon Church, which is only 2 blocks away from where I lived. And I went over and confronted Lorraine Day, and she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "You've got to let me in your acting group." She said, "Why?" I said, "I've told all my friends you wanted me in." She let me in the group, and I became part of an acting group and a theater group, and appeared in a play with Lorraine Day when I was 19 years old. So that was love. But along the way, here's the thing I haven't told you yet. Most of you don't know. I remember being born. That's very unusual, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many of you remember being born? I found out in later years I was a 10-month baby. I stayed in the womb 10 months. I was not a 9-month baby. I came out after 10 months, and my eyesight and hearing was improved by staying in the womb for 10 months. So I remember coming out. And it was quite exciting for me. When my first daughter was born 40 years ago, I called my mother and I said, "You know, how many days did you suckle me?" She said, 3 days. I said, I remember the flavor. I said, "How many days after I was born was I circumcised?" She said, 5 days. I said, "It wasn't home, was it?" "No." "It wasn't the hospital?" "No." "Did my father bundle me up and walk me downtown and go upstairs and lay me on a table, and a man in a white uniform leaned over me with something bright in his hand, and I felt the pain, and that was a circumcision, and I was 5 days old." So those memories stayed with me. And my mother, another thing that was great for me is my total memory of the movies that I saw when I was 3 years old. My mother was a maniac for movies. So she took me to see The Hunchback of Notre Dame with Lon Chaney. And it was an incredible movie. It moved me when I was 3 years old. And I saw it again when I was 17. I went to the theater in Hollywood with friends. And I said, "I remember this movie very well." They said, "When did you see it?" I said, "When I was 3 years old." They said, "You can't remember this movie." "Yes, I can. There's this scene, and this scene, and this scene." And we went in to see the movie, and by God, there it was. So I fell in love with Lon Chaney. I fell in love with the Phantom of the Opera that he did. I fell in love with dinosaurs. I saw a film called The Lost World, full of dinosaurs. I fell in love with dinosaurs, and they changed my life too. And along the way, I met a young man when I was 18, and I discovered that he built dinosaurs in his garage. His name was Ray Harryhouse. I don't know how many of you know his name. He did Jason and the Argonauts. That's a great film, isn't it? Well, when I discovered he loved dinosaurs, we became close friends, and he took me to his home. He took me out to the garage, and I saw it was full of miniature giant dinosaurs he was putting on film. He was beginning to produce his own little films of dinosaurs when he was 18 years old. So when I found a film like that, we stayed friends forever. So 60 years later, I was able to go to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and give him an Oscar for building those dinosaurs. Can you imagine how great that was? I stood up on the stage and handed the Oscar to Ray Harryhausen, and I burst into tears. I was so happy, and he was happy too. So what you have here now is a creature of love. And along the way, people said, what kind of film do you want to do? I said, if they just offer me something decent, I'll try to do it.